I'm really bad at making split-second decisions. Does anyone feel me? You like roll up to Starbucks and your mom's like, I need an order. What's your order? Tell me your order. And you're like, I don't know. I haven't looked at the menu. Or like the waiter walks up to a restaurant and you're not ready and you're like, there is no way that I can finish this in the time that it's going to take for this person to get around the table. That's me, man. I have a hard time making decisions. Those of you that are out there and you know exactly what you want all of the time, you are blessed. I am jealous of you. I can't make decisions like that. I'll say this. Cheesecake Factory is my worst nightmare. Who's been to Cheesecake Factory before? Okay, I Googled it. The Cheesecake Factory menu is 21 pages long, and it has more than 250 items. Someone say, wow, that's a lot of items. I think I would be so stressed out by the time I got my food, I would just have to leave. I don't even think I'd eat. I would just have a meltdown eating the menu item. And it's funny because sometimes we think having more options makes life easier, right? Like restaurants or like clothing stores, they're like, the more options that I have, the more things that I have, the easier it will be for people to make a decision. The easier life will be for them. But what we find is that when you have more options, it actually makes things really, really complicated. Here's some maybe options that you have. You're up to school, you're like, who am I gonna hang out with? I just showed up to this new school. There's so many people to hang out with, what am I gonna? Or you wake up in the morning, you're like, I could literally do anything today. The sky's the limit, what am I gonna do? Or even decisions that you have to make. How am I gonna live today? Am I going to do the right thing today? Am I going to live for Jesus today? Or am I going to do something else? And sometimes I think that life is a lot like the Cheesecake Factory menu. There are so many decisions for you to make. There's so many things coming at you. There's so many things you need to make a decision on that it can just be complicated and overwhelming and really challenging. And sometimes you just get overwhelmed with life. Life is complicated. What am I going to eat? What am I going to wear? What am I going to do? Who am I going to hang out with? And how will people react to all of these things that I do? Not only do I have to decide what I'm going to do, but what are people going to think about it? Life is complicated. And as Christians, sometimes we bring this complication into our lives, into our relationship with Jesus. And sometimes all of these thoughts are running through our head. Am I doing the right thing? God, are you taking me to the right place? Should I go here? Should I go there? Am I making the right friends? God, I know you said not to do this, but it seems kind of fun. Like, what do I do about it? And sometimes we make life with Jesus way more complicated than it needs to be. Something I want you to know tonight is that life is complicated, but Jesus is simple. If you're feeling stressed out about your relationship with Jesus, you don't know where you stand with him, you're wondering how to be a good Christian and am I doing the right things, and you're just more stressed out about being a Christian than anything, I want you to hear this. Life is complicated, but Jesus is simple. Maybe you're overcomplicating your relationship with Jesus tonight. As we go through the last I am statement that Jesus said to his disciples, I want to cover 3 reasons why you're making your life more complicated than it needs to be. The first reason your life is complicated is maybe you think you can do it on your own. We're going to read in John 15, the last I am. Jesus said to his disciples, I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away. And every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, that it may bear more fruit. Already you are clean because of the word that I have spoken to you. Abide in me, and I in you, as the branch cannot bear fruit by itself, unless it abides in the vine. Neither can you, unless you abide in me. I am the vine. You are the branches. Whoever abides in me and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. I have a little power strip that I plug stuff into in my office. And sometimes I don't charge my phone at home. Sometimes I charge it here because the charger that I have here is way faster and it's way cooler. And it just works better when I'm here, okay? But sometimes my daughter, Florence, she's 2. She likes to get into things. She likes to, go around my office. Sometimes Florence likes to go into my office and turn off that power strip. And yeah, I know she should not be playing with power strips. I tell her to go immediately. But sometimes she turns it off before I can tell her that, and I have no idea. There's been a time when I come to work, my phone's dead, and I need to plug it in because, I need to be able to talk to the people. Maybe my boss needs to get a hold of me. Maybe something, maybe just someone needs to get a hold of me. I need my phone charged. I'm like, I don't have much time today. All right, I got a meeting in the morning. I'm going to leave my phone plugged in. And when I come back, Instagram all day. No, I'm just kidding. I don't look at Instagram at work. I'll have my phone. People will be able to get in contact with me. It'll work. And sometimes I come back from that meeting and my phone's not charged. It's completely dead. There has been no power going to it because the power has been off. Your phone is dependent on electricity to work. In the same way that a car is dependent on gasoline to drive. Have your parents ever ran out of gas while they're driving before? Crazy, dudes, crazy. It's ran out. Dude, trying to drive a car without gas makes no sense. Trying to charge a phone without electricity makes no sense. Trying to take a test without studying makes no sense. It doesn't work. Sometimes it works with the test thing, but you shouldn't do that. You should study. Trying to be a human without Jesus just doesn't work. Trying to live life without Jesus just doesn't work in the same way that you can't charge your phone without electricity. In the same way that you can't drive a car without gasoline. In the same way that you shouldn't take a test without studying. Humans are dependent on Jesus. Humans were made to run off of Jesus. And it might be kind of hard to see that Jesus is saying that because he's talking about a grapevine. And we live in New Mexico. I haven't seen many grapevines. There are a couple, but I haven't seen many grapevines. So you're maybe dude, this makes no sense to me. Why is Jesus talking about this? And it's because in Israel, grapevines are actually really important. So I was looking into it today a little bit. And did you know that they've kind of done some studying? And all of the grapes that you eat, all of the grapes that we grow in the world, some people believe that all of them originated in Israel and kind of the surrounding area. So all grapes originated from there, and then they started exporting them, and they started changing, and all of the grapes that are grown today have come from Israel. So Jesus and his disciples who live in Israel, it's not that weird of a thing for them to be talking about grapes. Some commentators, and those are just people who write books on the Bible to help you see what the Bible says. That's what a commentary is. A commentator, he said that Jesus might have even been saying this to his disciples as they passed by a grapevine, which I just think is cool. And I think it's cool that Jesus uses just things in our lives to illustrate who he is. But as he's walking around and he's talking about a grapevine, he mentions one thing, and that's that on a grape plant, the most important part of it is the vine. It's like the thick trunk of the grapevine that sticks up out of the ground. It's the thing that brings nutrients to the branches. And the funny thing about a vine is none of the fruit grows on the vine. It all grows on the branches that extend out of it. But let me ask you a question. If the branches didn't have the vine, would they ever be able to produce any fruit? No, you see, the vine digs its roots into the ground and it sucks up water and nutrients and it passes it out through the branches, and the branches are alive and they're doing their thing, and suddenly these grapes start to pop out of the branches. And these awesome things that humans can make out of grapes, out of the fruit, exist. But if the branch is ever separated from the vine, it doesn't have any of the things that it needs. And if you look at like a grape branch, if you took it off of the vine, it would just wither away and die. It would dry up and die. Have you ever taken flowers from the store? Like, have you ever, maybe you had to buy flowers for your mom, or maybe you were buying flowers for your girlfriend. Good idea. Girls like flowers. That flower is the beautiful thing that we buy it for. But if that flower is ever separated from the stem, if that flower is ever separated from the plant, it just shrivels up and dies. You see, the most important part of the grape plant is the vine. And if the branches aren't connected to it, it shrivels up and it dies. Did Jesus say that you were the vine? What did he say that you were? Who can remember? He says that you're the branch. So in the same way that a grape branch cannot exist from the vine, you can't live without Jesus. You weren't meant to live without Jesus. The only reason that you exist is because God existed first. It says in Genesis 2:7, it says, "Then the Lord God formed a man." God already existed. He created a man. "Then the Lord God formed a man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. And the man became a living being." The only reason that you're here is because God chose to breathe life into you. And that breath from God, you are dependent on it to live a life that is fruitful and a life that is worth living. The moment that you try to live life without being connected to God, you dry up and you wither away. Life without Jesus, it gets complicated. It doesn't work. You weren't made for it. Because suddenly everything is all on you. Every decision that you make, it's on you. You have to make the right one. Whether people like you or not, it's all on you. Whether you do good in school, it's all on you. Whether you're a good kid, it's all on you. And whether you mess up, if you mess up, it's all on you. And the problem with depending on yourself and not depending on God, and you guys don't know this yet because I think that maybe you're at an age where you haven't had to depend on yourself a whole lot yet. But the problem with depending on yourself instead of depending on God is that you find out really quickly that you're not very good on your own. You find out very quickly that every time you have an opportunity to mess up, you're going to mess up. You find out quickly that you have no say over what people think about you. You have no say over how people view you in your life. You cannot control your future. You can't control anything, actually, as humans. And the biggest problem with this, when you depend on yourself, is you realize how bad you are at depending on yourself. And the only person you can blame is you. You decided to do it on your own. I decided to do this thing that got me in trouble. I decided to not do my homework and I got an F in every single class. I decided to do this. And when you depend on yourself, the only person you can blame is you. And that's a really hard place to be in. I think it's funny. Have you guys ever watched singing shows? Maybe it's like, I don't know, like The X Factor or stuff like that. Have you ever seen that? Or like America's Got Talent? Yeah. Yeah, sometimes people go on that show and they're so good at singing, dude. Like they've got it covered. They're so good at it. And then sometimes people go on that show, bro, And it's like, who the heck told you should be out here? I don't know why you're out here. And when you're watching it with people, everyone's always like, oh, I feel so bad for them. That's so embarrassing. And like, I get it. I also feel bad for the embarrassment that they're going through. But I also can't help but like sit there and be like, yeah, but they chose to go on the show. You know what I mean? Like maybe someone convinced them, but they chose to go on the show. And sometimes when you rely on yourself, you find yourself in a situation where you're like, dang, the only person I can blame is me. I can tell you that when I was your age, when I was in high school, when I was in college, last week, there's times where I've depended on myself. And I'm like, I can't blame anybody but me. That is my fault. I lived apart from Jesus in high school. And when I depended on myself, my life got so complicated. And I found myself in a spot, I couldn't do anything about it. And I'm like, can anyone help me? Would anyone just help me get out of this mess? And Jesus showed up in my life. And he said, Santi, if you start depending on me, I will change your life. You see, depending fully on Jesus makes a complicated life simple. If you feel like things are complicated right now, man, it's complicated with my siblings. It's complicated with all my teachers. Dude, it's complicated with my parents right now. This just isn't working out. Maybe you're trying to do things on your own instead of letting Jesus in on it. One thing I love about Jesus is that whenever he tells you something, he always tells you what to do with it after. And in verse 9, he says this, if the goal for us is to depend on him and be close to him, and he uses the word abide, which just means to stay close to him. If our job is to abide, we're like, how do we do that? And he's like, oh, I'm so glad you asked. I have the answer for you right here, verse 9. As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. Crazy thing about Jesus, he already loves you. We talked about it last week. Maybe you don't love Jesus right now. He still loves you. His love is not something that we earn. It's not something that we're so good that we finally get. It's something that's constantly shining out into the world. And all we have to do is stay in that sunshine. And the way we stay in that sunshine is just the way that we live our life. He said, if you follow my commandments, you will abide in my love. Here's the cool thing about following God's commands. We talked about earlier. Man, some people think that having more options is going to make life simpler. You have so many things to choose from. But we found out that that's not actually the case. I would say the same thing is true for the way that you live your life for Jesus. We make it so complicated. God, what do you want me to do? God, did you really say for me to not do that? I don't know. It feels so good. Why should I not do that? And you're like arguing with God about what he said for you to do. And you're making it more complicated. Living life with Jesus means one thing. You either say yes to him or you say no. You see, when you live life with Jesus and you know that staying in his love is as simple as following his commands, you only have one decision to make every single day. And that decision is, am I going to follow him? Or am I going to follow myself? When you decide to just stay with Jesus, when you just decide to stay by his love and follow his commands, life becomes so much less complicated. The only thing you need to decide, God asked me to do this. I'm going to say yes. And when you follow his commandments, when you obey him, it just works out. You're attached to the vine, and suddenly everything that you've been needing, your life feels dry. You feel like you don't have water. You feel like you need. Jesus gives it to you. the best way that you could live your life is by obeying what Jesus said, not because he doesn't want you to do things. It's because he doesn't want you to go away. Don't do it on your own. You're not made to be alone. We're going to say that together. You ready? It's going to be on the screen so you guys can see it. Don't do it on your own. You're not made to be alone. Don't do it without Jesus. You're not made for that. The next reason your life might be complicated is that you fill yourself up with things that bring you down. Verse 11, it says this. It says, "These things I have spoken to you, that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be full." I love this part because Jesus is so open. You never have to know why he's telling you something. He's not like, hey, you need to follow my commands because I'm actually super insecure, and if you don't follow me, then I think that you don't like me or something. That's not what Jesus is saying. Jesus is like, no. Literally just follow my commands, because when you do, you're going to have a joy-filled life. You see, Jesus only tells you to do something because he knows that it's going to be the best for you. Jesus only tells you to do something because he wants you to experience joy. Joy is the thing that all humans are just searching for. I would say this, on my worst day, everything has gone wrong and I'm just bummed out and I just feel I messed everything up and nothing's ever going to be the same. Do you guys have days like that? Man, how am I going to fix this? I'm in such a bad mood. I can't fix this. What I'm really thirsting after is joy. I just want to be okay again. I'm thirsting for it. And the reason that we want joy in our lives, and we want Jesus' joy in our lives, is because Jesus' joy is not dependent on your circumstance. Jesus' joy is not dependent on what that person said about you at school. Jesus' joy is not dependent on how you feel about your family when you get home. Jesus' joy is found in him and you knowing that no matter how bad things get, if I'm attached to the vine, Jesus will give me what I need. So everyone is searching for joy. Everyone needs this thing, and Jesus literally just offers it to us. Life with Jesus is supposed to be full of joy. And when we abide in his love, when we're connected to the vine, we have unlimited access to that joy. The problem is we don't always go to that to fill us up. When we're lacking joy in our lives, we need to ask ourselves, what am I filling myself up with? So I'm going to ask you a question. When life gets you down, what do you turn to fill you up? I think a lot of us turn to our phone. I think a lot of us just turn to our friends to distract ourselves. Maybe it's a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or I'm going to turn on video games and I'm just going to drown myself in hours and hours and hours of Call of Duty because I don't actually have joy in my life. I'm just sad all the time. But when I play video games, maybe I feel full a little bit. Maybe for you it's fashion. Maybe it's getting new clothes. Maybe it's the way that people are going to view you. I'm really sad right now, but maybe if I got those new pairs of shoes, maybe if I was able to thrift that thing, maybe if I got that fresh jacket that I would feel better. Maybe you're looking for the approval of others or just attention from people. You just want to feel good. You just want joy. You're experiencing all these new things in life. You're like, I didn't feel like this yesterday, but now I do. And I will do anything to make this feeling go away. When life gets you down, when you're there, you need to ask yourself, what do I go to fill me up? Because not everything will take away the thirst in your life. If you're thirsty for joy, not everything you drink is going to give you what you need. I remember driving home the other day. It was on Thursday. I just kind of just had a weird day at work. Things didn't go the way I wanted them to. I was driving home and I'm like, I just need things to change right now. I need my day to get better. I need some joy. And And I just like had this moment in my car where I realized that I just kept pulling my phone out. I kept changing the song. I kept trying to sing a new song. I kept looking at things on Instagram. I kept just looking for new things to do to make me feel happier, to make my day get better. It didn't change it. My day didn't change. I was still thirsty until I went to the Lord. I wasn't thirsty for any of those other things. I was thirsty for Jesus. I was thirsty for his joy. Sometimes you can get spiritually dehydrated. Who's ever been dehydrated at like sports practice before? Dude, you just feel tired. You don't feel like you can run anymore. One time I was so dehydrated when I was younger, I had to like go to the hospital and like get an IV in. And I just remember feeling like tired. When you're so thirsty, it gets you down. But I'm going to tell you this, if you've ever been to the beach before, you know this. Don't drink ocean water if you're thirsty. It looks like water, it smells like water, it is water, but it's got so much salt in it, it's going to kill you. And instead of drinking it and being brought up, oh, I was dehydrated, I feel better now. No. It actually sends you into a worse state. You need to be careful with what you are filling yourself up with when you are thirsty. Because imagine getting off of sports practice. You're dehydrated. You don't know what to do. You're feeling down. I'm going to open this bottle. Just give me 1 second. Someone comes up to you and they're like, I got what you need. I'm going to pour for you. Sweet cup of soy sauce. It's salty. If you drink enough soy sauce, it'll fill your stomach. Oh, don't worry. We're going to get some for all of you. Bring them out, leaders. Come on. Bring them out. Imagine you get off sports practice and someone brings you soy sauce to drink. Okay, we're handing them out to everyone. Everyone's going to get one, even if you don't drink it. Everyone's going to get one. Hand out a couple handfuls, pass it down to your friends. What brand is that? Can I see one of those, Steve? What brand is it? Okay, we got Panda soy sauce. I have Kikkoman soy sauce. But soy sauce is soy sauce. Okay. Soy sauce. Who has their soy sauce? Does everyone have soy sauce? Everyone's got it. Open it up. Open your soy sauce. If you need help, ask a leader next to you. Take a little sniff. Smells like salt. Okay, are we good to go? Everyone's got it open. Is everyone ready? Soy sauce in 3, 2, 1, go! No! Okay. Bring it back in. Okay, be honest. Who liked drinking soy sauce? Come on. All right, we got to finish up. So everyone bring it back in. Everyone, eyes on me. Lock it in. Okay, everyone, eyes back on me right now. 3, 2, 1, eyes on me, please. Thank you. If you just got out of practice and you were thirsty and someone handed you soy sauce, that is the worst thing that you could drink. You could drink enough of it and it would fill your stomach up, but you would get so sick afterwards. I only gave you a little bit. You'll be fine. But if you drank a whole jug of soy sauce, it would not rehydrate you. It would dehydrate you. Salt dehydrates you. It dries you out. When you're thirsty for the joy that Jesus offers, when you're thirsty for the joy that Jesus brings, what are you looking to fill you up? I want you to keep this packet of soy sauce. And I want you to keep it in your pocket. I want you to keep it in your backpack at school so that when you're having a bad day, when you just feel like you're lacking joy, and you're tempted to go to all of these other things to fill you up, to make you happy, I want you to remember that soy sauce is what the Lord offers. And I want you to remember this, is that you need to take your soy sauce and you need to trade it in for some joy sauce. Sound good? Everyone say it. You need to take your soy sauce and you need to trade it in for some joy sauce, all right? When you have the joy of God, when you are obedient to Him and you continue to live a life connected to Him, He gives you a jug of water like this. And He fills your life up with joy. And whenever you need it, you're able to lean on Jesus and you're able to drink it. In solidarity with you guys, I'm not going to take a sip of water until I'm done with this sermon, but you get the point. Do not settle for what the world has to offer. Do not settle for the thing that will fill you up for a second, but leave you in worse condition. Trade in your soy sauce for some joy sauce. Last thing before we close, we're going to sing another song and then we're going to pray. But the last reason why your life might feel complicated, everyone back in. The soy sauce was fun, wasn't it? I don't think I'm ever going to forget this moment. Okay, back in. The last reason you feel like life is complicated is maybe because you're trying to live without love. Verse 12, Jesus said, "This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, that someone lay down his life for his friends." We just found out that life gets complicated when we stop doing what God has asked us to do. So what has God asked us to do? What are His commandments? What are we supposed to do in order to be obedient to Jesus? There's a lot of things that He asks us to do. But one time Jesus told people this. He said that all of the law, all of the prophets, all of the things that the Israelites were commanded to do to obey God, He said that all of them could be summed up in two things. That you love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. And that you love your neighbor as yourself. You see, whenever God asks you to do something, whenever God asks you to be obedient, what He's pushing you towards, what He wants you to do, is He's pushing you to love Him a little bit more. And He's pushing to love someone else just a little bit more. So if you're feeling dry, if you feel like you are not connected with Jesus, you're feeling like you need joy in your life, maybe the thing that you need to do is you need to start living your life with love again. When you look at your life, what you spend time on, what you think about all the time, is it just about you? Is it just about what you're going through? Is it just about what you need? Do you think about God? Do you think about the people next to you? Or maybe as you've gotten older, maybe you've noticed that your life has actually become so much more about yourself than anything else. Maybe you feel like you've stopped loving. I can tell you this is that the quickest way to separate from the vine, the quickest way to stop depending on God is to stop living a life of love. A life without love is a life without joy. When you learn to follow the command of loving people and loving God, God's joy will be in your life. And your life doesn't have to be as complicated as we make it. Your relationship with Jesus doesn't have to be as complicated as you make it. Maybe what you need to do is just obey him and love him and love people. My life was so complicated without Jesus, but the worst part is that I didn't feel like I had love. I felt like I stopped being able to love other people. I stopped being able to receive love from people, and I just felt cold. I just felt lifeless. I didn't know how to love. But when I met Jesus, he taught me how to love. He softened my heart, and now I feel like I'm fully alive. No, my life isn't perfect. No, things don't always go the way that I want them to. But I feel fully alive because I'm connected to Jesus. You need to start by loving people. Maybe this Christmas season when it's all about me, what can I get? What are people gonna give me? What am I gonna receive? Maybe you need to start thinking about, what can I give? So tonight, what I want you to think about is, how can I stay connected to Jesus? Am I trying to live without him? Have I stopped relying on him? Am I filling myself up with the wrong thing? And lastly, do I love people? Do I love God? If not, I think Jesus wants to change that tonight.